How the hell does your slow motion footage look so sick and mine looks like shit, dude? Can you please tell me?
Yeah, there are definitely some tips that dramatically improve your FPV slow motion shots.
Dude, then just share your secrets with me, man. Come on.
Tip number 1, slow motion camera settings. My go-to settings for slow motion FPV shots are 4K at 120 frames per second. This gives you super smooth footage when you slow it down. Use a log or flat color profile so you have maximum flexibility when color grading in post. Your shutter speed should always be set to double your frame rate. So if you're shooting at 120 frames per second, your shutter speed should be 1/240th of a second. Set your white balance around 5500 Kelvin for those natural daylight tones. ISO. Keep it low to avoid noise. I typically set ISO minimum to 100 and ISO max to 100 as well, to maintain consistent exposure. If it's too bright outside, then you're using ND filters. And finally, set your sharpness to low. You don't want artificial sharpening since it can mess with the clarity. If you're not planning to stabilize the footage in post, shoot in wide mode. If you want to stabilize, go for super view. It gives you a broader canvas to work with, which is super helpful when stabilizing in post. Tip number 2, framing and adjusting in post. When you're flying FPV, fast movements are the name of the game, especially in action sports or when you're following a drift car. Sometimes the framing won't be perfect, and that's okay. You can always adjust in post. Cropping or reframing the shot a little can make all the difference. Don't be afraid to use these tweaks to get your shot looking just right, especially when you're shooting at higher resolution like 4K. Tip number 3, safety first. Now, a quick but important reminder. Safety always comes first. Especially when you're flying close to people or vehicles, make sure you're not putting anyone in danger. Keep a safe distance, know your limits, and make sure you're in control at all times. Ladies and gentlemen, listen carefully. I'm building an all-in-one FPV learning platform called FPV School. It's the place to learn everything about flying FPV drones, from building custom drones to creating viral videos and even turning your passion into a profitable business. You'll be learning alongside a community of passionate FPV pilots, sharing knowledge, getting feedback and solving issues together with weekly Zoom calls for personalized help. Sounds interesting? Check the first link in the description for a 7-day free trial and see it all for yourself. Risk-free. Now, back to the video. Tip number 4, don't overdo it. One thing I see a lot, especially from new pilots, is overusing slow motion. While it can add a dramatic effect, it doesn't work for every shot. For example, this one, where we need to wait like a whole century until we finally get to the action. I think you get it. So when does slow motion make sense? Perfect for high action moments like in action sports, drifting, or when you're capturing something with a lot of speed and motion. But in between those high action moments, sometimes you want to bring the pace back up to keep the energy of your edit. That's where speed ramps come into play. When we come to number 5, speed ramps and motion blur, the real game changers here. Speaking of speed ramps, they are like a secret hack for slow motion FPV shots. Speed ramping allows you to slow down the footage during key moments and then bring it back to normal speed. This creates a really dynamic flow to your edit and keeps the viewer engaged. For example, you can be flying at full speed, slow down as you get close to a subject, and then speed up again as you pull away. On top of that, in combination with adding motion blur in post, is another trick that can take your footage from good to great. It adds realism and makes the transitions between fast and slow sections even smoother. Trust me, it's totally worth it. Tip number 6, flying through particles. One of my favorite ways to use slow motion is flying through water, snow, or dirt. Anytime you can get particles flying through the air, it adds so much depth and texture to your shots. If you're flying through snow, for example, slow motion can make every snowflake visible, creating just this stunning and magical effect. And if you can combine this with an outward spiral orbit and motion blur, then you got really insane results. See you in the next video. Peace.